Kiva is a website whose mission is to connect people through lending to alleviate poverty. So what we allow people to do is in $25 increments participate in a very personal way in microfinance. And as we see it, our theory of change is two things. One is to fund the risk and cost frontier of today's financial services. Basically go where commercial capital is not going. And that's a lot of places right now. Today, microfinance has reached about 150 million families worldwide, 150 million people worldwide. The potential is about 800 million. So there's a lot of places, post-conflict Africa, for example, where commercial capital is not going. It's absolutely critical for us to channel kind of this more risk-tolerant, people-powered capital to those places. The second is to educate the public. Oftentimes we hear about all these problems in the world, and it's very disempowering, or it almost feels like it's intractable, some of these problems. And Kiva wants to give people the opportunity to help create opportunity in other people's lives in a very simple, affordable way. We almost think of it as kind of kindergarten for international development. We know that 2% of American giving goes abroad. We know only about 1/3 of Americans have a passport. And so how can we get more Americans, for example, to actually engage in what's happening with that farmer in Uganda? And if they can do it in a very simple way, kind of in a $25 loan in 3 minutes or less, that gets them to pay attention because that loan creates a persistent tie between them and that business. And as they get repayment updates and kind of updates on the progress of that business, they get kind of more and more into the human condition around the planet. And maybe if they start there, as they progress over time, they one day become a Peace Corps volunteer or go to Johns Hopkins SAIS to get a degree in international relations. What we want to do is get kind of the millions of Americans and millions and tens of millions of people on the internet kind of more engaged in the world around them. Kiva likes to think of itself as an internet public good. We started in microfinance, and particularly helping small businesses gain access to capital through microfinance institutions. But one way to kind of think about Kiva broadly is to look at the example of Amazon. Amazon started as a bookstore, but what they really did is they focused on two things. They focused on, one, the back-end fulfillment and logistics, an incredible complex set of operations. In Kiva today, it's in 60 countries. We work with over 130 microfinance organizations, growing quite quickly, 700 volunteers, a lot of complex back-end stuff. But the second thing that Amazon focused on is the user experience. And I think in philanthropy, what we think there's incredible opportunity to do with technology is at a very low-cost, scalable way, allow people to really connect, allow people to really track and rigorously monitor the impact or the lack of impact of what they're trying to do. And so Kiva of the future, I think, is going to expand, from just small business lending to last year we launched in student loans. This year we just got into the green space to allow people to switch from, say, dirty fuels to like a clean burning cook stove and lower the cost of ownership of that. And issue by issue, actually make it easier for organizations around the planet that are doing great work to raise money on loan. I think when Kiva first started, there was certainly probably a lot of hype, and from the traditional philanthropy space, there were some, myself included when I joined Kiva, that wondered if the hype would actually match the actual impact. And there's reasons to be skeptical of anything that's new because there's a million new things, and one of the problems with any industry, philanthropy included, is that we go after the new shiny thing versus focusing on the interventions that are tried and true that work and helping them scale up. I think what we're realizing now is that Kiva, like Facebook, like YouTube, is just another platform to give visibility, and in Kiva's case, an opportunity to raise funds for organizations all around the planet that are doing incredible work. And so as our staff of basically investment professionals do due diligence and monitoring on great organizations, we work with 130 microfinance organizations around the planet. 85% of them are nonprofit organizations themselves doing incredible services, not just financial services, but wraparound services like education and health. What we want to do is not only bring them more capital to unlock their capital constraint from the internet community, but bring them more awareness and education, essentially, educate the broader public and the larger philanthropic landscape so they can come in and provide more risk capital and help these organizations that are doing amazing work scale. So broadly, what I see happening is that philanthropists are beginning to look at the Kiva platform as a way to kind of find great opportunities to be catalytic with their own capital, whether it's an organization that's below the radar in Sierra Leone, or maybe another interesting organization in Mongolia that's experimenting with student loans. I think it can increasingly be a source of information for those who want to be catalytic with their own philanthropic capital.